government. But national elections actually take place every 2 years. Citizens vote on the representatives and senators who make up Congress. Congress writes our nation's laws, which can support or block stuff the president wants to do. That means voting in congressional races is super important. State and local elections have a huge impact on people's lives too. Those officials decide on stuff like schools, construction, and transportation. Yep, simply voting isn't enough. You need to know what you're voting for. Democracy only works when voters educate themselves about the issues. You need to consider how the candidates, the people running for office, would vote on those issues. Their political party can give you some idea of that. Each party stands for a set of core beliefs about how to run the government. Candidates will explain where they personally stand in speeches and on their websites. Most elections happen on Election Day. It falls on the first Tuesday in November, as long as it's not November 1st. Most voters head to their polling places to cast their votes. Some sites have electronic voting. Voters touch a screen or push a button. At other places, they might fill out cards that get fed into a scanner. And a few still issue paper ballots that get counted by hand. Plus, in more than half the states, people can vote early by mail. But whichever method they use to vote, voters have the right to privacy. No one is supposed to see who anyone else is voting for. That way, everyone can vote for what they believe, even if it's super weird. I really shouldn't. I'm trying to cut down.
Would everybody for me right now go to Schoology and open up your Unit 8 document? Unit 8 document. Okay, I think that this is, we didn't start out with this quite yet, did we? We didn't do this part. Okay, so in your opinion, who should be allowed to vote in the United States? Citizens only? All legal residents, including non-citizens? People who have committed a serious crime? Everyone? Or do you kind of go the other way with it? Should we really let some of these people vote? I mean, seriously. Shouldn't you have to have a high school degree? Should I take it even farther? Maybe you should have to have a college degree before you're allowed to vote. This is a pretty important responsibility. And I don't know if I want some, 18-year-old out there that doesn't really care, just voting on a whim, right? You're going to be able to trust these people. Or do you have the approach like, no, people have fought in wars and died over the fact that we need to make voting eligible. That's how a democracy works. I don't care if you aren't of sound mind and body. You have a right to vote, right? So there's this long spectrum, folks. On one side of the spectrum, it's like, I don't know. Do we really trust the mob? Do we really trust everybody to vote? Is it fair that somebody who's a genius has the exact same vote as somebody that, can't spell their name? You know what I mean? Or is it on the other side of the spectrum? That I don't care how old somebody gets or they lose their driver's license, they should still be able to vote. I don't care how many crimes somebody commits, they should still be able to vote. Where do you think you lie on that spectrum? There's no wrong answer to this one, but you have to put something in there if you want your 5 points. Go. Really? Wow. All right. Free answers for you here, folks. All you got to do is pay attention. In order to register to vote here in Minnesota, so assuming that you all are turning 18, you could technically, I stated this right the other day, you could technically just go to the polling place and vote. If you bring like a piece of mail that's got your address. You guys know how simple that is. But it is pretty easy to do in Minnesota. You can register online. You can register on paper. You can do it in person on election day. You could even find a way to register early and do an absentee vote if you weren't necessarily in town for it, okay? Or if you just didn't want to go because of, well, obviously that was in the news as of late, right? People didn't want to go to the polling place because they weren't comfortable going there because they thought that maybe they catch COVID or whatever it might be. So some disagreements between political parties about is it fair, is it right to do an absentee vote? Or kind of our conversation from late last week is, should it be inconvenient to go vote? You know what I mean? Or should we make it as simple as everything else in your lives, right? Just should it be as easy as filling out a Google form? Okay. So you have to be 18 years old on election day, a resident, of Minnesota for at least 20 days. I'm kind of surprised by that one. Don't you think it should be a little longer? You move somewhere for 20 days and you're automatically able to vote. Finish with all parts of any felony sentence. So if you do get in trouble and you do have a crime that you have committed that is of felony status, you've got to at least be done with that sentence. You had to have had your sentence carried out, okay? Any questions about this, folks? And everybody obviously knows how to access the Try to 3 Google presentation. This is directly from the reading, 10.3. So if you go right to the document that's listed in Schoology, you'll see one of them is out of Chapter 10, Section 3, where you're going to be able to find the differences between the open primaries and a closed primary. And just those of you that are, well, good at understanding like some of the text clues that you have here, obviously an open primary is just one that's open to, you can participate in that primary regardless of what your status is. And on the flip side, if it's a closed primary, you need to be a card-carrying member of that political party. Does that make sense? So like if you, let's say that you really wanted to sabotage like a primary election because you didn't want to see so-and-so run for president, you know, even though you're a card-carrying member of the Democratic Party, maybe you would vote in the Republican primaries just to get the candidate that you didn't want in office. And that's why they've got a difference between the open and closed policy in some of these here, okay? Here's other types of primaries where people caucus. They come together and they actually talk about what which candidate is going to be right for them. Who should we as a Republican Party or we as a Democratic Party choose? Okay, as opposed to just holding a primary, holding a vote, okay? So in general elections, as we learned pretty straightforward right from our that Brain Pop video that you just watched, okay? It's the first Tuesday, okay? Assuming that you've had a Monday before it, which is why the person on the video said that as long as, another way of thinking about it is as long as that Tuesday isn't the first, you can have that election on that Tuesday, if that makes sense, okay? Presidential elections happen every 4. Congressional elections happen every 2. So sometimes they will align with each other, okay? But obviously congressionals will happen without the presidential, okay, every other time. Each party has their own poll watchers to ensure that elections are conducted fairly. Okay, and then you've got one more here from the reading, but I will be reviewing some of these answers with you later in the week before we submit this document, okay? Any questions, thoughts, feelings, or concerns about any of this stuff? No? Okay. What I want everybody to do right now, regardless if you are here or you are at home, is I want you to open up that Unit 8 document, and I want you to find this part right here. Okay, so if you were absent last week or just didn't see what we were doing last week, check the Try3 Google presentation to get some of these answers here. Okay, so this part we talked about, okay, or you'll at least be able to see what section to pull that from. Okay, this part's pretty straightforward. Should we get rid of political parties? I know there are a number of kids that missed that part, and I can show you how to access that video. Okay, should we get rid of political parties? And then, let's see. Hopefully you got, we did that reading last week. Okay, these are the notes that we just started. And then lastly, I thought there was a game here that we were going to be doing. Did I miss it? There it is. Cast your vote. Okay. I would like everybody right now to get going on the cast your vote portion of the document. Okay. Get that app downloaded. Start playing the game, because that one I think is going to take you at least 25 minutes. Okay. All right. Anything that I missed here, folks? Any questions from those of you online?